I wanted to share a little something that's been boggling my mind a little bit, as well as I'm sure many other folks. So what I have is a 96 F-150 and a 96 F-350. And the problem I'm having is that when you run on the rear tank, it will overflow into the front tank. So then in turn, the front tank will fill up with gas and then actually overflow the gas and pour out on the ground. And that's not supposed to do that. What it's supposed to do is, when you're running on the rear tank, it should return to the rear tank, and when you run on the front tank, it should return to only the front tank. And I figured this out, why it's doing this. So problem solved here. And I wanted to share what I figured out. So I took this pump apart. This is the old pump, and I'd put a new pump in, but it's doing the same thing. And the reason why the new one is doing it is because it's doesn't have the check valve in it, and I'll show you that here in a second. So obviously this is the pump that I took it apart. Of course, you got the little sock that goes on the bottom, and the pump itself sits in there, right? So when the pump's running, and if you look inside here, there's a little tube right there. If you can see it, a little tube right there. Get a flashlight so you can see it better. Yeah, that's messed up. Different light. There it is. So that little tube that's right there is right there. So when the pump's running, it sucks it up through this tube, and when this thing is together, it goes inside of here. That little tube's got an O-ring on it. So the pump sucks it up through the sock, through here, and then when it goes through this tube, this little tube actually has two little holes inside of here. One actually goes through, the pump is sitting here, right here, so it's sucking it up through here, and it goes through here and out here. There's another check valve inside of this, and then out through the larger of the two lines, right? So this line right here, it goes out, and then this larger line right here, of course, it goes up to the engine and comes back. And when this pump is running, it goes back through this smaller tube, right? And then it's on the other side. It goes through this tube, and then this right here is the issue. This is a check valve. So when that pump is running, there's a little hole inside of here. The pump actually presses, the pressure from the pump actually opens this check valve. It's just a spring type check valve. That's all it is. See, if you take a pair of pliers, you can grab a hold of this right here, right? And you can pull it open. If I can do this two hands, it actually opens up. So you kind of see, right? So when the pump is running, it opens this, which allows the return to come back through here, because there's also, when the pump is running, there's another little hole in here. The pump goes through that little hole and it presses this check valve open, which in turn allows the return to come back through and back into the same tank that it's running on. When you flip the switch on your dash, the only thing it's doing is shutting one pump off and turning the other pump on. So when you switch to the rear tank, this check valve should be closed. So, bottom line here, a way to test this without having to take the whole thing apart is you could actually just blow on the smaller tube right here. If you can blow through this and air flows through it, it's not working correctly. You should be able to blow through this and it not be able to any airflow through it. This one here, you can blow through it a little bit, so that means that check valve is leaking by. This little check valve right here is leaking by. All right, so I'll show you the new pump and why it is not the right one. Hang on a second. All right, so this is the new pump, and this is how I know this isn't the right one. because as I just showed on the old pump, it has that check valve built into it. This one does not have the check valve. So this pump on this one just sits inside this canister, right? It's got a sock on the bottom, so it comes up through the sock, and then this pump has a sock on it, you know, filter sock, whatever you want to call it. And then it, you know, it just pumps it up through the bigger line right here, and then when it comes back, it goes back through the small line. And if you see here, the small line just comes out the bottom. There's no check valve, so it just flows right back into the tank. So if you're using this on the front tank and you're running on the back tank, it's going to overflow into the front tank, and your front tank's going to fill up. This particular pump will work on I don't know the exact years they switched this, but the 80s and I think like early 90s, like maybe like 91 was probably like the last year. They actually had a separate switching valve that was mounted up underneath the bed of the truck. And that valve is what prevented the second tank, or whichever tank, from overflowing. It switched, it diverted it from one tank to the other. That valve actually did the diversion. So using this type of pump in I'm going to say 92 to 96, and then like 97 250 350s, using these will not work correctly. You're going to have that same problem. It's going to flow into the front tank if you're running it on the rear tank. This doesn't have the check valves in it at all. And actually, let me go back to the other one a second. All right, so we're back on the other one real fast. I'm trying to make it as quick as possible. Actually, this thing actually has 3 check valves in it. This right here, see that little square box in the very bottom? If you can kind of see it. If you look at the bottom, right there, that's a check valve. So it sucks past the check valve, but it can't go back the other direction. It's got a check valve right here. This is what prevents it from returning to the tank that is not running. It only opens when the pump is running. The pressure of the pump presses it open. And then it also has a little check valve inside this part right here. So when the pump's running, it pushes the valve open, and then it goes through that large line again, like I just said. So that's it. So if you're ever having that issue and scratching your head about why it's doing that, that is why. So make sure you get the right pump. If you get a new pump, an easy test to test it before you even put it in or anything is just I did it with just my lips. I put my lips on there and blew on it, and it goes past it. So that's it. Thanks.